following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages. We would like to remind our viewers that the views expressed in this program by our participating guests are solely viewpoints of them who take part and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. This is an opinion-based program.
Tonight on this special presentation of Get Real, can we reset our country? As the achievements of our nation continues to pour in and many positives occurring coast to coast, the image of our country out there continues to be dominated on the negative aspects of things.
Earlier, there was a lot of panic here. You heard women screaming.
At least 15 bodies, including that of children, have been recovered.
Analysts say the government is like an ostrich with its head in the sand.
Understandably, the global media should shed light on complex issues, but equally give a prominent place towards celebrating the achievements of a nation. However, what we see is the exact opposite.
I think Sri Lanka needs a good brand.
The negative press on the global stage is hammering Sri Lanka's growth as a developing nation. The question we need to ask is, why are the good blocked and the bad celebrated? Where does the problem lie? Is it out there or is it amidst us?
If world opinion has to change for Sri Lanka, is through some meaningful steps through which our highest level of engagement with the countries across at their leadership level must be pursued.
Is our discord and division feeding fuel to the fire and helping the negative narrative take precedent? Or is it our inability to celebrate ourselves the reason that has failed us in taking a more uncompromising stand out there?
Unity is simple. If we are divided, what will happen? Everywhere in the world, any international organization, they may not trust us.
How can we solve this problem? How can we change what's perceived of this nation that has won so much yet painted in a loser's brush? How can we use many resources at our disposal to put forward a united front to address this matter?
Greatest assets that Sri Lanka has is its human capital. Currently, they're not really taking advantage of it.
Can we utilize this setback amidst this COVID pandemic to restart our thinking on a positive note that's beneficial to all Sri Lankans and help each other to fight the negativity out there?
We are to truly build resilience through hope. We must all strive towards the common good.
Can we reset Sri Lanka? Can we reset the minds of our people? And can we change the course of our nation?
If you want democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first.
For expert opinions, tonight I'm honored to be in the midst of trailblazing Sri Lankan business entrepreneur Dian Gomes, leading Sri Lankan creative entrepreneur Linda Speldewinde, and Sri Lankan music icon Bathiya Jayakody. Real views, real opinions and honest conversations. This is Get Real and it all starts right now.
This is a special presentation of Get Real, the Great Sri Lankan Reset. Regenerate the economy, revive the nation, and regain our way of life. Now, reporting from Studio 24, here's Mahieash Johnney.
Good evening. This is a special presentation of Get Real, the Great Sri Lankan Reset, as we continue to explore avenues of growth and potential for this nation amidst this setback known as COVID-19. Well, tonight, once again, I'm asking the question, how can we reset Sri Lanka? Reset the minds of our people, the approach, the ability to bring in fresh reasoning on a national level. So, instead of killing each other based on party politics, which we all know will never come to the point of ever uniting, we need to rethink in the lines of one nation, one law, one country and one goal. This is where I believe the time is nigh for us to embrace Sri Lankanism. As of now, in Sri Lanka, our vaccination drive has reached levels of global excellence. Our stock market is performing at a record pace level, breaking all records. Took a policy decision to move towards organic agriculture, which is supposed to be the future the entire world is moving to. One of the only nations in the world to do so. And we also won a gold medal at the recently concluded Paralympic Games in Tokyo. And a daughter of a war veteran, a singer, is getting global recognition for her cover song on YouTube. Now that is a bit of what Sri Lanka is achieving today. But before coming on the show, I did a simple Google search to see the narrative out there that showcases what Sri Lanka is today. So let me read out those headlines for you. Right at the top, Sri Lanka power couple piled up luxury homes, artworks and cash offshore. Then Sri Lanka indicts ISIL mastermind over Easter attacks. Government and opposition MPs change in Sri Lanka charges in Sri Lanka Parliament over Pandora Papers. I also did a similar search for the United States of America to see what's perceived of them in the world. Those headlines read, the richest woman in America, the richest Americans becoming 40% richer during the pandemic. U.S. consulate opens a window on America in Osogbo. And this headline for a change, America grows more equal. Where are those stories about our achievements? Sadly, we all know that we live in such a crass world where negativity sells and the achievements are limited to just a byline. And I also accept that we, the media, is also part of the problem locally. We have to ask this question, why is this happening? What's the driving force? Is it just that Western nations dominate most global media, or are we giving them fuel to add to the fire? Are we, as all Sri Lankans, putting a united front in changing the narrative on what is the perception of this nation on a global stage? Well, tonight I hope to get some answers to those questions by people who've done just that in their respective fields, creating a unique Sri Lankan brand locally and globally that has helped Sri Lanka to shine in a different light. And the point of tonight's conversation is to see how we can harness that knowledge to change the narrative of the nation as a whole out there today. However, before that, to start us off with a unique look as to where we can get more support on building this united front, is Dian with tonight's real story.
Sri Lanka possesses a unique and highly skilled diaspora in almost all corners of the world. This has led to an important globalization element of the people within this country. But it is questionable whether or not the country has benefited from the spread of intellects and professionals across the world. This has become increasingly important when considering the recent reports by international media organizations, which in most scenarios contradicted the situation on the ground within Sri Lanka. In further understanding the expatriate situation of the country, the census report of 2019 discovers that over 200,000 departures were recorded for employment opportunities in foreign countries from Sri Lanka, from which the leading countries possessing Sri Lankan expatriates have been the Middle Eastern countries. The Foreign Ministry has estimated that in 2020, around 10% of Sri Lanka's population is overseas, which could be between 2 to 2.5 million people. A bulk of this number were migrant workers, estimated to be approximately 1.5 million. In assessing the global outlook of Sri Lanka, the civil war and certain isolated tensions between races have been highlighted. But that is not the reality. The country is currently working extremely well with a diverse cabinet and parliamentary representation, which hasn't been seen in a long time period, and is working towards a number of common objectives. In understanding how nations influence other nations with indirect means, a large contributory factor is something known as soft power. Political scientist Joseph Nye identified the influence of soft power in his book Bound to Lead: The Changing Nature of American Power, published in 1990. In this book, he wrote, when one country gets other countries to want what it wants, might be called co-optive or soft power, in contrast with the hard or command power of ordering others to do what it wants. Today, soft power is measured as a metric of influence. Global Soft Power Index of 2021, prepared by Brand Finance, identifies Germany as the leader in soft power globally. Sri Lanka was placed 70th. In order to expand the scope through which Sri Lanka can influence global perceptions, the diaspora plays a large role. The professionals that have represented most Western nations not only take their own respective subject matter to the world, but rather the identity of their own country as well. This was quite clearly witnessed by potentially the most iconic foreign minister within Sri Lanka, the late Honourable Lakshman Kadrigamar.
Because I am very much a product of Sri Lanka. I had my schooling there, my first university was there, I went to the law college, and by the time I came to Oxford as a postgraduate student, well, I was a reasonably mature person. Oxford, I think, was the icing on the cake, but the cake was baked at home.
This form of representation hasn't been witnessed explicitly by today's educators. It is important because the construction of a favourable image of Sri Lanka is a paramount concern if the country is to witness social and economic prosperity. Due to multiple false accusations at the UN and other international humanitarian bodies, it can be noticed that the perception of the country has been tainted with images of violence against minorities. The increased interest of the Sri Lankan government in its diaspora in high-income regions such as the EU, the United States and Australia is a reflection of a growing consensus among Sri Lankan policymakers that increased connections with the diaspora in these regions will be beneficial for the country. This is amplified by the fact that a multitude of Sri Lankans or individuals with Sri Lankan origin have become elected officials in foreign countries. The most recent individual was elected to the Norwegian parliament. Her name is Kamsi Gunaratnam. According to the most recent Pew Research Center report, the Sri Lankan diaspora in the United States is generally educated and affluent, earning a median income of $74,000. The report also ranked the Sri Lankan diaspora as the third most successful Asian group in the United States. The Australian Department of Foreign Affairs describes the Sri Lankan diaspora as a key contributor to strengthening Australia's multicultural society and economy. These dynamics highlight the important role that the Sri Lankan diaspora in these regions can play in advancing Sri Lanka's foreign policy objectives. Some examples of notable personalities in the EU and the US include the then second runner-up in Miss Italia 2019 beauty contest held in Venice, Italy, Sermi Taruka Fernando, New York-born Julia Vijay-Singh, who is credited for the founding of the Sri Lankan Art and Cultural Museum, Dr. Dinesh Palipana, who was bestowed with the honour of Queensland Australian of the Year, amongst others, and Miss Teen International Botswana of 2021, Gimhani Pereira.
Of course, my family is still in Sweden, and I have been writing for Sweden for such a long time that they will follow me, and I think they will wish me all the best. Of course, Sweden have a very strong team, but I think Sri Lanka can just compete just as well against them.
A truly remarkable number of Sri Lankans are pursuing incredible careers in foreign countries. It is high time that the spread of the diaspora is used to encourage foreigners to rethink their vision of Sri Lanka. In this outset, it is important to recognize that the rebuilding of the country's international brand depends a lot on how constructive the diaspora's contribution is.
I look at Sri Lanka and think there's so much in Sri Lanka that I could help people with. I'm doing the same in Australia and around the world. I have a range of products which I want to bring to the market. And I'm just excited about what's next. I'm all ears. It's passion that has driven me to be more Sri Lankan than any other blood that is in my system. I feel for that country so much, and I'm so connected that, and just to finish up, to bring Sri Lankan cuisine to everybody in the world, I'll tell you what, no longer do people say it's just like Indian. Sri Lankan cuisine now stands on its own. There's no Indian umbrella. We have our own, and it's strong and proud, and people love everything Sri Lankan. So we should promote it more in Australia and around the world.
Steps have been taken by the current government to build connectivity among Sri Lankans living abroad and domestically through an online portal called Contact Sri Lanka. Contact Sri Lanka is an online portal jointly created by the Ministry of Foreign Relations and Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka for the benefit of overseas Sri Lankans. It is by improving on these scenarios can the novel branding for Sri Lanka be improved over time. It has been witnessed on many occasions that professionals and educators have had a unique opportunity to send a message to the international community pertaining to the vision of the country. This can be witnessed through the spread of foreign-funded think tanks that in certain occasions promote a very specific economic or social policy that that is rooted in another country. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has emphasized the need for the Tamil political parties, members of the Tamil diaspora, and all expatriates to work together to resolve the country's internal problems and take the country forward. This was explained to the European Union delegation to review Sri Lanka's progress in terms of the GSP Plus program, who visited Sri Lanka following the EU Parliament adopting a resolution calling on the EU Commission to consider temporary withdrawal of Sri Lanka's GSP Plus status and the benefits that come with it. It is at this standpoint should we understand that alongside a strong presence of the diaspora, the backlash from foreign governments wouldn't exist on this scale. The strength of the LTTE sympathizing diaspora continues to be strong and is quite clearly witnessed when looking at the perception certain Western governments hold over Sri Lanka. The question lies as to how in the modern day and age Sri Lanka can use its unique diaspora to extend a more sustainable and favorable branding for the country. The pride that comes with the Sri Lankan heritage should be far more explicit so that it overflows the current negativity that has been raised against the country. This is Danidhu Thanawasam reporting for The Real Story.
Thank you very much. That was Danidhu Thanawasam with The Real Story. All right, let's get into the context of the conversation we're going to have tonight. How can we rebrand the image of Sri Lanka? There are these people who are here with us tonight have done just that, locally and globally. Welcome to the program, Mr. Dian Gomes. He currently serves as the Honorary Consul of Georgia here in Sri Lanka. He's also the former chairman of Hella Clothing and former group director of Apparel Enterprise of Mass Holdings. He was also the president of the Boxing Association of Sri Lanka from 2004 to 2009 and once again from 2017 to up until now. Good to see you, sir. Thank you very much accepting our invitation and being here. I really hope we can have a very candid conversation with regard to what we are discussing tonight. Mrs. Linda Speldewinde, welcome to the program. Good to see you, ma'am. She is the founder of Design Corp group of companies, which includes the AOD, also the founder and chairperson of the Colombo Innovation Tower, which is something that I pass on a daily basis when I go home and come to work. Amongst many international awards and accolades, and most recent award was an honorary doctorate by the Northumbria University in the United Kingdom, which acknowledges Linda as one of Sri Lanka's leading entrepreneurs. Welcome to the program. Good to see you as well, man. Also, there's not just let's take a shot of this guy. Everybody knows him. Mr. Bathiya Jayakody, we know him as Mr. part of the Bathiya Santosh group, director at Bathiya and Santosh Productions, which is a Sri Lankan music brand, which has, everybody knows that's a Sri Lankan music brand, which has celebrated over 23 years of success in the industry. He's also the co-founder and director of Saragam Group and Showtown Entertainment. He is also the winner of Derana Sri Lankan of the Year Award in 2016 for the Entertainment and Arts category. Good to see you once again, Bathiya. Thank you very much for coming here. I know you're busy.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all you being here. Now, let me start off with Mr. Dian Gomes. When you had to do things like to change Sri Lanka's perception in a global stage, you were doing this during a time when the country was at war. You were changing our perception of this is not a shithole country like Trump calls most of the time. He's telling, no, there are a lot of opportunities here. So this you started back into, when the war was going on, trying to build an image for Sri Lanka that you started in the apparel industry, and you did all that. What can we learn from that, what you've done before, and what's happening now? What is your current view?
I think to become world class, first you have to change the mindset of your people, mindset of the culture. So you have to first create a culture. That's a very difficult thing. Country's culture or company's culture or a sporting culture. I frankly didn't have much experience in that. I was in my 30s when I went to Pannala to set up a three-way joint venture.
This was in?
This was in early mid-90s. Mid-90s. And actually 92, 93 only I went to Pannala. And so it was a three-way joint venture with Victoria's Secrets, MAS Holdings and Sara Lee Courtaulds. Two were very, very large companies, and MAS was not such a big company. It was a mid-sized company. And we were producing for the top brands, Victoria's Secrets, Marks and Spencer's, etc. Now, I was sent to Harvard in 95, 96, that era, by the company on executive education. I came back totally disillusioned because all the case studies which I had to study at Harvard were all US companies, mega multinationals like Coke, Hewlett Packard, etc. And one of the things when you create cultures, you need to have a role model. You need to have people who could mentor through. So I came to Sri Lanka totally confused, and I realized that I could never fit in as the chief executive to that role, to be the mentor for that time about 3,000 people at Slimline itself. So I started looking for a role model. The people, which were females between 18 and 22 or 18 and 24 in that age bracket. So we did a climate survey, and in the climate survey we put 10 people. Number one was that time the President Chandrika Kumarnatunga and opposition leader Ranil Wickramasinghe. And number two was Visharada Amaradeva. Number three was Nanda Malini, because musicians were universal. Yeah. And number 7 was late Major General Densil Kobakadua. So I told my management team at that time, look, and Sanat Jayasuriya and Aravinda De Silva, they were bachelors at that time, just after the World Cup victory, heroes of our time. And I said, I know who will get first and second. It will be a contest between, the two politicians, the president and the leader of opposition, and because they were all in one box, or the cricketers, or maybe Visharada Amaradeva. But to my surprise, 95% of the people, our unofficial union for 3 years, which consists about 180 people, voted 95% as number one for Major General Densil Kobakadu. We realized, our management team realized, our feet was not firmly on the ground. That was my first rude awakening, going to Pannala and to find out who the real heroes of the company. Then we did a climate survey and realized that we were doing a lot of work in the north and the east on these gum and the villagers, border villagers, doing a lot of, giving our off-cuts, etc., etc. And a lot of our people were directly involved in the war at that time. That means their brothers were in the army or the forces.
This is in the thick of the war.
Yes. And we had about a 5% of the Tamil staff and all that. Their relatives were in Jaffna and all that. So the whole organization, one way or the other, was involved in the war. But we were doing things which was positive. Positive in the sense helping any border villagers, whether they were Tamil villagers, whether they were Sinhalese villagers, were immaterial. We were helping them as our contribution to the country. Because I've realized, after getting the climate survey and all that, whether a Tamil mother loses a child or the Sinhalese mother loses a child, it is the same pain. Sure. We were trying to lessen that pain by giving these war widows machines and off-cuts for them to do it. And I've realized, number one, you need a mentor or a leader where the people will look up to. At that time, it was General Densil Kobakadua. Over the period of time, you became a little more sophisticated. You put the sporting heroes, all that in position. So the culture was set, one team. It doesn't matter where you come from, you would compete as one team. Because I've realized even during the times, we had to position ourselves to the west, to Victoria's Secrets. Buyers are not trying to come here. So we had to have the meetings abroad. But whenever they came here, they saw an organization which was slick. In the sense, we had put 5S, everything was neat, organized, and run by very, very qualified people. I had even a PhD from Yale, and very, very clever people. So we got profiled even in the Wall Street Journal. The headline was toiling in comfort for Victoria's Secrets, because we positioned MAS Holdings at that time to be a world-class manufacturing company in the 90s, and we were best in the world to compete. And then we started with Sara Lee beating all their factories to the safety award, etc. So it's a change of mindset. But you need to show a great leader, a great mentor, and a team which you can position. Today, if you are thinking of positioning, like you said, we are thinking of who has put us in the global map. Johanney has put us in the global map. Right now. And Kumar Sangakkara has put us in the global map, being the president of the MCC. And a girl climbs Everest. But like you say, if you look at the press, you look at the media, it's always negative. Somebody kills somebody, a prisoner escapes, something like that. But that is what sells the papers, and I understand that. But we are doing a great injustice without changing the mindset.
Exactly. Bathiya, I want to come to you because when you started off, I remember in college when Sri Lanka book came, there was a massive backlash because, people were saying you're trying to eat the culture, this, that, that I'm sure you would have remembered all that. But at that moment, you were trying to change the mindset. You all were trying to say, look here, yes, we can respect the culture and still do something relevant to that time. 20 years down the line, talking about Sri Lankan music, we can't omit you. We can't say you are eating our culture. You are part of it. I mean, do a Google search about Sri Lankan. We will have always Nandama, Vichardanandamalli, Vichardamadeva and all, but you are part of it. So how did you change that from that kind of a concept to what you are now?
So if I start from where actually Dan was explaining, he was saying that you have to change one's mindset. Now, the biggest problem that we saw at that time, and still what we see is, if you take any country in the world who have become very, very successful, they don't market history as their culture. That is a problem that we have. We are not marketing ourselves properly in terms of culture. Now, say for example, I'll take the latest example. If you take this girl, Johanney. Now, Johanney is a proper ambassador to the country right now. Now, I'll just park it there and I'll go back to 20 years ago and I'll tell you a part of a conversation we had with an executive from Sony. Now, in 1999, we first went to Sony Music and we knocked on their door, and it did not open properly. It did open halfway, and they spoke to us and they said that they said that Sri Lanka is too small of a market. Then when we showed them what kind of a market this is, as in this market is not movies, it's not dramas, it's not plays, it's music. It's primarily a music-dominated entertainment industry. Once we showed that, they were ready to open doors. But in that conversation, what they said was, it was a very interesting thing. They said, do you know how we pick a entertainment product from a country or a musical product from a country? So we said, explain. Now, what we try to sell here is we try to sell predominantly we try to sell a cultural musical product or any other sort of product which we think is very advanced and there. But what Sony Music said is that our primary ingredient that we look for is the sound.
The quality.
The sound. It can be somebody tapping on a glass and singing. But if that sound is appealing, we pick it up. You needn't be somebody who has done, certain exams or gone to university and done a degree on music or either a Sangeet Nipun or a Vishatrada or whatever. We will pick up a sound. That is the primary component that we look for. And Johanney has proven it, right? After 23 years of our conversation with Sony, right? Everybody, all of us were, setting the pace for it, and we did set certain things. But Johanney has proven that what they said was right.
After 20 years,
right now, even when she has proven it, 3 days ago, I was with a set of people from a very cultural, academic background seated. They are still not ready to accept the fact that this is the sound at the moment that Sri Lanka should be selling.
Understood.
And that's a very sad part of it.
But that is what I'm again coming. The appreciation for us is occurring offshore, but the appreciation is not appreciated locally.
Actually, I would not even use the word appreciate. We have to be objective about how we are going to sell ourselves to the world. The problem is we are constantly looking at it very, very emotionally.
Yes.
We are constantly looking at it subjectively. We are constantly looking at it historically, right? But we are not looking at it as a, objective. We have to look at it objectively. So when you look at it objectively, maybe this girl's song wouldn't appeal to you or me.
Yeah.
But no, it has proven. That is the proven sound right now, which we should be, which we should be focused on. So as Sri Lankans, a primary reset that we should have is, we have to separate our emotions, right, from what we are going to do to the world. Because if we can separate that and the objectivity, I think we can hit the bullseye very hard, just like what Dian said. So this is all about breaking it down into pieces and re-looking at how we sell ourselves. So I'll park it at that and then I'll come back.
That explains, because I think right now with COVID there is an opportunity. Okay, we have made a setback. Now let's rethink our strategy in all avenues, not just this, politically, economically, even culturally. Let's think.
If I could add a little bit more to that and then stop. So when you were speaking, so say for example, right now we are talking about agriculture. Yes, agriculture is good. Export, agri exports, everything is there. Right. One time we looked at clothing, as in the garment industry. One industry that we have been not looking at the moment is the intellectual property exports. I am not only talking about computers and software. I'm talking about literature. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about
cinema.
Not exactly cinema. Cinema with the kind of economies of scale that we have, it's a very, very tough fight. Right, I'm talking about music, I'm talking about other, about any other creative industry like graphic designing, all those. Why aren't we looking at intellectual exports as a part of our, growth of our, as a part of our GDP for the next 5 years? Now, if you properly look at that, the country's policy is not set for that. If you take the whole framework of intellectual property, it is in 3 ministries. We have 3 ministers doing it. We have culture in one place, we have another thing in another place, then we have the Intellectual Property Act coming under the Industrial Ministry. So we've got this whole thing messed up. We have got this whole thing messed up. So together with agri, together with other things, intellectual property is a massive inflow to a country. If you take countries like UK, 4% of the GDP. If you take a country like Australia, again 2%. So you get a massive input to that economy. So this is where I stand in my view with regard to the Great Reset.
It is very valid, and why I went to Dian and Bathiya was, they've been there now, started more than 30 years ago, more than 20 years ago. Now you're starting, Linda. You're coming up with various kinds of new ventures, and you're putting your hands into all these kinds of things. Are you still facing the issues that they're facing 20 years back, or has anything changed?
Yeah, I think, Mahieash, actually, my view has always been, about whatever we are doing with, my whole, it's coming from an entrepreneurial point of view. And I do believe, we can't talk about the same old things like right now. Because one is we are living in an unprecedented time with COVID. And I think our country really has an opportunity to wake up from an entrepreneurial point of view and look outside and see what are the opportunities that are out there in the world. It's really a natural reset. And I do believe that it's time for everybody to think like an entrepreneur. not only for entrepreneurs to think like entrepreneurs anymore. Right?
What are the areas that you're looking at right now? What are the things that you're seeing opportunity-wise for in your business? Where are you trying to tap into right now?
Yes. So, for example, I believe even like now, we've been in design, and our whole philosophy has been taking design to the apparel industry. I've worked very closely with Dian and people like that. Then it's been taking design to even the software industry, into many industries. And also, most importantly, what I'm most inspired by is I'm quite aware of the country we live in, right? So if you don't touch the grassroots, you touch nothing. So it's about taking design to villages, building livelihoods. That's been the passion over the years, right? But now the opportunity, if you look globally, right, the whole world is looking for sustainable products. It's completely changed. COVID has reset everything. So, and everybody knows Sri Lanka as, okay, they know us for tourism, they know we're a beautiful country, they know we are beautiful people, all of that, right? So, but now I think it's really a time for doing. So all these opportunities outside, if we can have an entrepreneurial mindset, first if we can be a nation of entrepreneurs, we can, I guess, inspire our people to think entrepreneurially.
It doesn't have to be like in $1 million level, right? You can.
No, I think it needs to be, Mahieash. Actually, we think very small, and in fact, I beat myself up about it as an entrepreneur as well. My goal right now, I don't know who told us to think so small. And in Sri Lankan terms, people think, I built the Colombo Innovation Tower, it's all great. But now when I think about it, what stopped us from building global companies, right? The market in Sri Lanka is so small. How can we help our country doing that?
We were having a conversation based on that. Where did it go wrong for us to think small like that? Dian, education plays a massive key role, right, in this?
Maybe because if you go to the university, they would mostly push people to do academically well. And, the whole idea is to get a class and then find a good job and then, be successful. Yeah. And that's what the average parents and even my parents would always say, study hard, qualify yourself, get a good job and then move on. But I think a lot of people in the Western society thinks the other way around. If you read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the rich dad would always say, here's $100, play the stock market. I come from the poor dad syndrome where they'll say, study, work hard, and get to it. Then I was lucky to work with people like Mahieash Johnney, who was a great visionary. And I can remember some simple story. When I joined MAS Holdings, I was about 29, and Mahieash should have been about 33. And he said, walking into the first factory, Shadowline, he says, Dian, when I'm 40, I want to be a $25 million company. That is a 1 billion rupee company at that time. But I thought, being a conservative accountant, he's crazy. I mean, we are about $3 or $4 million, and he's thinking of $25 million. That's a billion rupee company in about 6-7 years. But within the 6 years, we were about $100 million. And when he set the target of making $1 billion company, today it's a $3 billion company. So he was a great visionary, and he, broke away from the traditional Sri Lankan thinking. Although it was family owned, hired the best. He always used to tell me, Dian, hire the best. And I used to always go on the philosophy of picking the best better than you.
If I may interject, what is the best? What exactly are you looking at? Is it a nice diploma or a degree that is there? Because usually what we've seen, the people who are very academically well, has a very long CV, are idiots on the ground, doesn't understand the ground level. And so where exactly does this best comes into play? Because we are trying to get this best everywhere, but
the best,
not getting the result.
I used to pick the talent for MAS, and it's not about qualifications. Sometimes the degree or the qualifications is just an entry ticket to the game. I always tell them, it's an entry ticket to the game that will hold you as an advantage if you have academic qualifications. It is after that what you do, your passion. And people used to ask me why I take people with extracurricular activities, sports, drama, music. Why do I take people like that? Because they understand the world. They are passionate about what they are doing. So if they've done team sports, they become better team players.
Yeah.
And I never ask a question at an interview about their functional skills.
Yeah.
If you're an accountant, if you got your AC or SMA behind, so that's it.
Linda, before we go in for a break, creativity has to play, like you just said, somebody has told us think small, but we got to aim for the biggest, highest place we possibly could. And that, I think, is you have to work with in your current methodology of working. You have to feed that into the young minds. How are you finding that?
Yeah, so for example, we have a startup school right now, which we started during the pandemic, graduate school and a startup school.
The Academy of Design.
Yeah, so at AOD, so one of the things I'm doing from my own learning, now right now my full ambition is how do I build actually at least a South Asian market, or how do I step into that global setup as an entrepreneur. But the younger generation can already learn from our mistakes. So the 30 entrepreneurs that I'm mentoring, it's all about think outside, design for export. You want to help your country, crack some exports right now, right? Crack some big markets right now. Nobody asked you to think only about the Sri Lankan market, right? So that's something we are doing. And in the space of creativity and entrepreneurship, I'm really fortunate, or we are really fortunate that way, because creativity is needed for everything. Whether you're selling something in a village. Now, right now, for example, we have taken design and all the handloom weaving industry in the villages. We export, I always proudly say this, we export saris to India. And it was featured on BBC recently. We are the only Sri Lankan, company, and it really, who would have thought that, right? Handloom woven saris to India. So I think, now that was one opportunity before COVID. So right now, using the creative entrepreneurship cap, I'm looking at what are the opportunities out there. Right. So one is I can see that the houses in the village, they're home gardening. So why can't we, while they do handloom weaving, why can't we double their income by looking at exporting some of the other products, by grouping it together, cracking some new exports in organic agriculture, right? So it's just that entrepreneurial mindset that I want to campaign for, really, that our country really, everybody, whether you're the housewife at home or whatever, I mean, India as a nation is entrepreneurial. Why can't we ignite that spirit post-COVID right now?
She was talking about think big. You thought big, and you aimed really high with Santhosh. You all actually, you wanted to break away from the Sri Lankan market and go global. Where are you aiming now?
So basically right now, Mahieash, just to tell you a little bit of a history of our industry and what she was talking about as well. So entrepreneurship was one part of our success as well. So when we came into the industry, most of the time, people who sang or did whatever arts were just the artist. So then what we realized was that at one point, now if you take the, like say about 30 years ago, if you take a telephone, if you want to get a phone, you have to wait for 5 years or 4 years in a waiting line. And then if you wanted to go and do a transaction at a bank, you had to go to that bank, they had to fax, do all that, there were no ATM machines. But those industries, by the time that we came into the industry during 1998, they had structured themselves in such a way that they were technically they were being formed as proper industries. And in that analysis, what we found was that the people who do the core part of that particular subject is about 5%. It is the others who come and they are the ones who rev up the industry, like people, HR, marketing, all this. Now, if you take a telecommunication company right now, the biggest ones, how many people are telecommunication engineers there?
Yeah.
maybe a few hundred people. But then it's the others, right, who come and then they propel the industry to that massive exponential growth. So we realized that in entertainment, I'm not talking now when I say entertainment, a lot of people think that media and entertainment are the same. No, media is media.
Yeah, media is media.
Right? Media had exponential growth during the late 90s and the early 2000s, and media was set up. But entertainment was still scattered around. Right? So what we thought was, why can't we make this into a corporate structure? So that is where we started off. So what we did was we started off with small, we started off with the audio business, and then we expanded into a few audio studios, and then we quite realized that having the Bathiya and Santush tag on it didn't bring us enough business to sustain this and start growing it. So we called it a different brand name, and we started getting other engineers. We started employing them on a full time. Then we wanted to do those big shows and big productions. And then what we quite realized was that we had event companies at that time, but then the passion of doing this, they operated like a business. They were not solving a problem. So we got a lot of problem solvers from campuses, from universities, and then we started this small company called Showtown, and now it has become what you guys know today. So we started building around this, and then towards 2010 we quite realized that people from banking, like people from if I may say names, like banks like HSBC, like global banks, and to NTB, all these banks, right? We got guys coming and saying, look, we want to quit our bank job and come into this because we want to do entertainment as a passion. So then, okay, where are we going to fit them? Then we started our own client servicing teams. And so this went on, and now we are like 8 companies. We're like 8 companies, we have got a massive staff, and now we are operating under a proper structure. So this is our goal. But during this, now since we are talking about the Great Reset, one thing that I must sadly say is that while doing our operation, one thing that we saw was even the big corporates in Sri Lanka, except for a few companies like maybe MS or what Linda was talking about, they all focused on vertical growth. So when you focus on vertical growth, you are looking at shooting out of the country. But most of our big corporates, you see what they're doing. They grow vertically, and suddenly when they come to the shores of Sri Lanka, they start going horizontally. And they eat into each other's markets, and then the markets become saturated, and then we are in the same mess again. Only a few companies, like the apparel, like what Linda said, only a few companies have thought of growing vertically and going out of the shores. But all the others are like, they come like this and become a T at the end of the day. And then they stop at our shows. And so even us at the moment, like I think that we passed that first cycle. So every company, I'm sure, every operation, you start small and then you have like leaps. It happens in time periods. You don't grow like this. You do grow like this, but then suddenly you have a skew up, and then again you grow like that and skew. So now we are like right now in our 4th, we are searching for our 4th skew, like a big upward skew there. So like what Linda was saying, we are right now looking at a major vertical skew, not a horizontal growth at the moment.
To hit the highest
we
mark.
want to hit that. Now with this girl's success, Johanni's success, what we have been talking to most of the other entertainers and the entertainment companies are, let's try to get that model into the entire business environment that we operate in. And let's try to talk to her collaborators, and let's try to now get this gate opened up further. Because to come to this gate, we had to fight a few battles over the last 20 years. Now, say for example, initially the meetings with Sony Music, they didn't even look at us. But then they looked at Sri Lanka as where they could operate a franchise model. So then came in the companies like, certain companies, I don't want to mention names here, but then certain companies, they started the franchises. But then beyond the franchises, beyond the franchise, then we quite realized that we have to enter those markets and start doing projects and things to be accepted a part of those markets. So we did that. During the 2006, we launched certain albums in India. We partnered with other people like Hariharas and the Asha Bhosles. So we became known amongst the industry. And then, now with all that background, now the young people are starting to sell. It is now that we have started to sell. It was all this time we were quite investing in the foundation of this whole exercise. So from here onwards, I am 100% with what Linda said. All of us have to think vertical growth and going out of the country rather than looking horizontal and eating into each other's faces.
Like you said, the example is right in front of us. Those days we rap Eminem songs, we shook our hips for Shakira's songs, and then we sang for Beyonce. Now in the streets of New York, there is a violinist who is playing a Sri Lankan tune, and that pretty much says the achievement that we can go to. It's just that we got to get our act together down here before we, trying to conquer the world. Let's take a short commercial break. Lot to talk about with this panel. You're watching the Get Real special, The Great Sri Lankan Reset. We'll be right back. To the Great Sri Lankan Reset, the Get Real special. We're discussing with Mr. Dian, Gomes, Mrs. Linda Speldewinde, and also Mr. Bathiya Jayakody with regard to, they gave a lot of ideas and information with what they did during the time that they had to do things, and how we can utilize that knowledge in order to do certain things right now, because COVID has put a small dent to our growth, but that is an opportunity. We should not be looking at it as something that detrimental. We cannot wake up or of that nature. There are a lot of positives that Sri Lanka can sell. One of the other things I want to start off with Mr. Gomes. If you just, when you're traveling around the world, you notice that everywhere there's a Sri Lankan. Not very recently, some time back, I was in Melbourne, and suddenly I heard somebody speaking in Sinhalese and passing on the streets. I was like, hang on, what's going on? But this is what we are witnessing everywhere in the world. Now, most of them have detached from the country per se. They don't want, we have a lot, but they do not, feel patriotic, because whatever the reasons they've left on whatever grounds. How can we change that and get that help also? And how did you do that during the time when you were trying to get a global brand and trying to pitch to the world? Was it just a local effort, or was that a international effort in your case?
Actually, I didn't have to really face that situation, because our joint venture partners were doing all the marketing part of it, either Victoria's Secrets or Courtaulds. So we were trying to be best in class in manufacturing for all the brands, because we didn't have a brand per se. So I basically didn't have to encounter that, positioning it to the world in terms of marketing, but because the brands themselves are very strong in their markets. But we want to show that if you manufacture in Sri Lanka, it's very ethical, and we take care of our workers, we take care of our social responsibilities, we take care of our environment, and we went on to win a lot of awards for those, and positioned ourselves as great manufacturers. So I didn't have to take on the diaspora or anybody else.
What do you think right now? Because right now we have, if you just look at politically or economically, one of the biggest issues Sri Lanka is facing at the UNHRC. Our image has been completely destroyed there. But we have lots of Sri Lankans coming out there with the Sri Lankan flag protesting against all that, but yet the message is not going indoors to the United Nations, to the UNHRC. They are still looking at us as we are killing Tamils here, we are murdering them, massacring them, doing all that. How can we, when we are talking about resetting, when we are talking about a united front, we need to get their assistance as well. What are your thoughts on those things?
First, I think Sri Lanka must come as united. We ourselves internally, before we take on anybody else outside, are we united? If you look at a lot of things, Sri Lanka in my lifetime has never been united. The only two examples that I give when I talk is when Sri Lanka played Australia in 1996. For 24 hours we were all Sri Lankans. Muttaya Muralidharan was not Tamil. Sanath Jayasuriya was not from the south. Arjuna Ranatunga was not an Anandian. And Vas was not Catholic. We played as Sri Lanka. I can remember when I took Anuruddha Ratnayaka for the Olympic Games, for 8 minutes, Sri Lankans prayed for him. Our factories of nearly 75,000 people came 1 hour before and chanted Pirit, before the fight, which came as a shock to me. So sports have been a great unifier. Yeah. Other than few instances like that, the tsunamis of that we hit in 2004, etc., Sri Lanka has never been united. They are either divided by politics, they are divided by religion, they are divided by caste, they are divided by schools. My job when I was a corporate guy was not to bring Sri Lanka together. My job was to bring my companies together. And we use sports, music, which is a great unifier to bring people together. We are Sri Lankan and we are resilient and we can do it. We can get an Olympic medal. And that means not only the boxers, not only the other athletes who were with me, we as a team created that. We didn't care whether they were from Kandy or down south or whether they went to Royal College. It didn't matter. Sri Lankans, we want to carry that flag. We want to make them competitive. And you have to change them by, first of all, we used to run and sing the national anthem in every factory. Every factory, whether they're in the north, south, every morning we sing the national anthem. I have seen our national players not being able to sing the national anthem. Mm-hmm. They don't put the hand into the heart like All Blacks or any other players, right, and sing the national anthem. Not with the passion. So we need to create that before we take on the diaspora, because they will turn and say, look at the guys, what are you talking about? You all are fighting by different issues. We should ban all these political parties with different names. We are Sri Lankans, like Singapore. Take the tough action and law and order. So we need to get them first. Respect for everybody. Then we can take on the world and say, look, we are Sri Lankans. We want to bring people together. We want to bring that respect together. So I have no answer for that, how to handle the diaspora or others, even the Sinhalese who are outside, because all my friends outside, both Tamils and Sinhalese, they send various WhatsApp messages laughing at us. This is what you all are doing. Tell me what it is. So I have no answers to that. I stay like a rat, looking at our inner selves. Because we need to change. We need to change from the school, jobs and all that. Make us proud. When an Olympian goes, Paralympic guy, what is the kind of recognition we have given him? Yes. You tell me. He won a gold medal at the Paralympics. Gold medal. And are we giving any glory to these guys? No. I think Bathiya and Santosh, would have taken 15 years to be recognized really at Derana, because I was one of the judges, right? And there are so many, even there, they are young, they are this, nothing. Make us proud,
Linda, right now when you are trying to get into, telling the world, you said hitting the highest mark possible. This message, what he said, is quite vital for you, because what we can sell to the world is Sri Lanka. We can't sell America, we can't sell India. We have to sell our unique self to the world and say this is something you need to recognize and to give pride to. How do you bridge the gap? Because all the decisiveness, the divisions that has been created politically, societally, is affecting economically, whatever said and done. It is hitting our businesses. We have projects hoping like port city will not become just a land filled with sand, but to make sure that we have lots of companies from globally coming. Investor confidence is a big issue right now. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, so I think everything Dian said on a macro picture level absolutely is needed, but I just don't think that's an excuse for us to not have a clear picture on our economy. So I do believe, particularly again coming from an entrepreneurial point of view, a vision of the future is always more powerful than stories or memories of the past, especially at a time like this when we are trying to build post-COVID. So I mean, to inspire anybody, diaspora or whoever, do we know first what we are trying to build, right? And I think the economic side is a total neutral side. People will support you if you know what you're trying to do, right? So I feel like first we have to have a clear vision. Okay, everybody knows tourism about Sri Lanka, but what else do we know about Sri Lanka, right?
Are we one trick pony?
Yeah, do they know that are we going to take, what is our position? What's the problem of the world that we are going to solve? Are we going to take South Asia to the world? Is that our position? We are going to be the hub of South Asia, right? And take all this grassroots level manufacturing, which is what I'm working on, take that to the world. So is that really our position then? Then you will bring in the support, right, Mahieash? Now, for example, in the north, right? I work a lot in the north, just after the north, going and taking those cottage industries, trying to work out exports, all of that, right? I mean, I'm a burger. First, I had a free ground because my colleagues couldn't even go there just after the war, right? They were not very, I mean, they were not, when the army came, there were issues, right? But I seemed to have a free pass to go. They just trusted me automatically, right? But after the economic side came and their livelihoods improved, then my colleagues who just spoke Sinhalese only were able to go and work there. So the economic livelihood is a good neutralizer. And I think while everything needs to happen, what you speak about, Dian, we can't all play that game.
Yes.
Right? So there is no excuse for us to not spark our own entrepreneurial spirit of our nation, of all our people, and get them to work, stop talking, right? Everybody knows we are unrealized potential. So now at least spot the opportunities and go for it. I don't know if it makes sense, Mahieash, but that's my strong view.
I mean, like, I get it. Yeah, we are looking at, away from the Sri Lankan shores, whereas the problem lies right here. So instead of addressing,
and diaspora will support you if you're trying to build livelihoods and all of that. That's the easy one to get support
exactly.
for. Yeah,
exactly. Bathiya, now, in your business, when you were trying to take it out, you did get a lot of support from Sri Lankans abroad, and you were accepted as a Sri Lankan brand that needs to be celebrated. What are your thoughts on what they've been saying?
My thought on this whole thing is like, say for example, when we tried to take this out, it was first the Sri Lankan expats who actually embraced us. It was not, it was Sri Lankan. It was not Sinhalese, Tamil or Muslim or whatever. If you take our fan base, we have a lot of people who are Sinhala. Also, we have a lot of Sri Lankan Tamils who are our fans. They accept us as their countrymen who are stars or musicians or whatever. Then also we have a huge Muslim following as well in this equation. So that means we have been doing something right. So that really paid off when we went to countries. Now say for example, if you take Australia, we have had the biggest show at the moment, like from the Sri Lankan bands who go there. We packed, like 2 years ago, we did the first packed massive stadium concert. We got a huge, if you go on our YouTube, you'll see queue standing on the road, and it's like a proper international concert going on. Then we did the US tours and all of those, and so we have been getting this good vibe from the people. But the only problem is, if you talk about the diaspora, the problem that I see is that the Sri Lankan political system, the politicians, now if they are smart enough to come up with strategies to win their game here, right? Why aren't they smart enough to come up with strategies to win the game out there? That means the focus is not there.
The island mentality.
No. The focus is on winning whatever is happening here. So the focus is maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 4 years, maybe 3 years. Everybody's focus is that. මම මෙතන කොහොමද මම මෙතන manage කරගත්තොත් එහෙම මට හරි මගේ ඊළඟ එකට යන්නේ. So nobody from any party is thinking about the outside, because we've got corporates now if you take certain corporates, big corporates in Sri Lanka, we have seen how public perception, I'm just saying, it's a very small thing, public perception goes against them, but their CEOs come up with a vision, a 5-year plan. I don't want to name corporates, but you and I both know. 5-year plan and they implement it, and within 2 years they just come out of that rut. Can't we do that? Like any of our politicians, I am sure these guys are intelligent, because when you talk to them on one-to-one, they're very intelligent. But as a unit, the state, I'm talking about the state, I'm not talking about one singular party, I'm not talking about any one individual. The state has to have a strategy in fighting or brand building when it comes to outside. So that is something that we lack. We see that when we go out, it is our individual sportsmen, individual corporate leaders, people like us, the entertainers, maybe the entrepreneurs, the creative people. They are going and fighting their own battles and doing it outside. But there is no consolidated strategy coming from within as a state to put all these equations together. Now, if you take a country like Singapore, whatever, all these people, the sports, the creative industry, maybe exports, all of these are part of this big macro picture. But we don't have a macro picture. So we are all fighting our own battles, and we all have our own visions. So singular brands are really doing well, and we are trying our level best. But who is going to guide us as a whole?
The visionary.
As in, where is that big vision? So if there is a big vision, all of us, like you get a lot of people, like you said, Sangakkara, you get you get individual names, then you get companies, you get sport, you get a lot of people doing this. But who is there to bring them and align them and build this strategy? That strategy is the thing which is missing. So I think as young people, like a lot of young people in the next 5 to 10 years, if we get people who have this vision, and people who can see from a 35,000 feet view, right, where you can see both inside and outside at the same time, rather than looking inside on its own and then looking outside on its own. If you get that macro picture and place all of us, because all of us have that, even you, even all these companies, we all have that drive. But the state has to come and place all of us in one big picture and in one big vision and a rollout for this to happen. If not, we will be having the same conversation in the next 10 years.
That is something that actually came up during this series as well, because changing 5 years, everything changes from. It's not just a small change from grassroots level. It just uprooted from that. This government doesn't like that. Best example would have been the Port City issue, where 2015 we should have just started and continued. But by now we would have had something if we would have finished it. But that's the case. Let's take a short commercial break. More to discuss with this panel. This is the Great Sri Lankan Reset, a Get Real special. We'll be right back. Everyone to the Great Sri Lankan Reset, a Get Real special. I'm in conversation with Mr. Dian Gomes, Mrs. Linda Speldewinde, and also Mr. Bathiya Jayakody. We've been talking about a lot of good ideas right here on this program. We identified the issues. I'll start off with Mr. Gomes. What's the solution? All right, we know where we are. We know we've screwed up. Is it doom and gloom for us, or is there a way we can come out of this?
I think COVID has put us in a situation that people are looking inward and looking at options, because that itself, because there has been no choice. So you're against the wall and you fight. Otherwise, as businesses, as anything else, you'll be dead. So we can't totally depend on the government or the society to do it. Now, say for example, I'm looking at 3 examples. COVID. When we have been told not to go here and there and to protect ourselves, we have politicians, we have other people who are having rallies, protests and all that, and creating a difficult situation whatsoever. So if the government takes hard action, like stopping it, giving them a baton charge, then they'll say human rights violations. And people are dying, 300 people a day, 500 people a day. If 1,000 people died, they would have said government dropped the ball. So we have to start with ourselves.
They would have said, they're saying that.
They're saying
exactly
that. So,
what they're saying.
We have to look at ourselves. If there are some issues, let us look at as Sri Lankans and sort it out. That's number one. The second thing is positive thinking. Without blaming, there are a lot of things that we can blame ourselves. The government, the policies, all that. Let's look at the positive things, and as Sri Lankans, is it beneficial for us? And let's work at that. Because I don't want to talk about policy and, where we have gone wrong, the political issues, not right selections. We can talk about 100 things. But we have to realize that Sri Lanka or any other Asian country, we have all these things, starting from corruption to you name it. But let's look at the positive things. How can we place, how can we position ourselves, how can we survive the pandemic, and how we can move forward. So I don't have specific solutions to that. One is how to survive COVID. That's a priority at the moment. Next thing, all organizations are with a different mindset, especially the private sector. They have looked at options. Other than tourism, apparel industry is doing extremely very well. Why? Because the global situation, there's a lot of orders coming here. It's how do we manage to run our factories and keep the exports ticking. Because if not for the apparel industry today, most probably we would be in a worse situation. The dollar is in a bad situation. How do we kind of manage that? That let the economists handle it, not to give our fantastic opinions, because people can give opinions, people can talk till cows come home, but nothing will happen. Let's do the small things. That's my thinking. Because if you think positively, how can we fix it? What are and a lot of companies have taken costs off. Because some of the private organizations are fat. They have taken the costs off. Then they have looked at new markets, new products, because you're pushed against the wall. Then you are looking at new ways of working now, because I don't think in the future they have suddenly realized it's costly to run office space and officers, air conditioning and all that. People can work from home, which we would have never thought. Even a person like me would have never thought. So it's new thinking.
Linda, very quickly, running out of time, what do you think? What is your hope for this country?
Yeah, first is, I think everybody, if they can, scolding the country as a full-time occupation is really not really useful, You can't make it your whole identity as a citizen. It's okay to do it if you want for a bit, but you need to also mobilize yourself and deliver right now. That's my really strong view. And also that we have to stop hoping, because hope is not a business strategy. It's not a strategy at all, right? And hope is not passive. It's action-oriented. So, okay, fine, everybody knows we're a country of hope after East attacks, all that. So now really put that into action is my view. And finally, just as an individual citizen of this country, figure out where you stand really, right? This is post-COVID. Look outside, see what's the opportunities out there, right? See where you stand. Again, the entrepreneurial mentality. What is the opportunity first? Then where do you stand? How much cash do you have? Did you lose your job, right? With what you have, how much runway can you buy yourself? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? And during that time, what are you going to do, right? So my ask is an entrepreneurial mindset, even from, entrepreneurial mindset, ignite the spirit of entrepreneurship in our nation, right? And catch a few people, put them in charge. So, like the apparel industry, we say get this billion IT industry, get some entrepreneurs also and give them some targets and ask them how are you going to deliver this? And how many people are you going to bring along and support? So that kind of personal leadership is my view, yeah.
True. Bathiya, what do you think?
My take is that like all the industries right now, especially the SMEs have to think very, very strategically. Their heart has to be in what they're doing, like the long-term vision, yes, of course. But then we all need to know that the ways that we used to do things are not going to be the ways that we are going to do things. Because we have experienced an entire paradigm shift of this. So the best example that I give our people, as in people from our industries, look at how from the CD to the MP3, how the whole paradigm shift happened. Until the CD, from the time that Mozart or Beethoven played the music thing and sold a sheet, up to the CD, we sold a tangible commodity. And the selling method of the product was a tangible commodity. And suddenly when it became the MP3, we were trying to sell it like a tangible commodity, and it failed globally. Then we realized that it was an intangible service.
Yeah.
And then when they started looking at it in that way, then the entertainment business thrived. So right now we are in a time where we are going through an entire paradigm shift of how we do things, how we are going to do things. So don't cling on to the past, because I'm a part of few associations and I'm also in some of those excos, and I can see that some of the members, 65% of the members are still harping on, how are we going to do it the way we did? No, you can't do it the way you did. We have to look at it differently, and maybe we will have to shift out of certain services and go into new services.
Sure.
In the same area. So my take is we are going through a complete paradigm shift. So start thinking differently, and please know that we are not going to be doing business the same way that we used to do it back in the day.
Absolutely true, because I go back to what you said earlier on. We are selling our history. What are we selling? 2,000 years of history? No, we don't have 2,000 years of economical know-how. What we have, 2,000 years involved the kings. The kings are not here now. We have a new way. Just after independence, more than 80 years. We are a young country. So yes, lots of good things that came out from this discussion. Mrs. Dian Gomes, Mrs. Linda Speldewinde, and Mr. Bathiya Jayakody. Thank you very much for the responses and the ideas that you shared, which was very useful, and I hope our viewers would think in a different capacity and reset their minds. This is what the idea of this entire program is. Well, that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to stay positive, test negative, and get yourself vaccinated. Good night.